to dashboards clear. Netdata projects here to cheer. Real-time data all in sight. Streamline your workday and your night. Netdata projects spotlight shines, bringing ease to your design signs. Tune in, watch your systems flow with insights that you want to know.
Welcome back, everyone, to another Cloud Native Club Project Spotlight. I'm Steve Wade, and we're finally back after some issues with some internet and some storms here. I want to welcome today Shyam from Netdata.
Hi, Steve. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here.
Before we begin, Shyam, can you introduce yourself and your role within Netdata, please?
Sure. So I'm Shyam Sreevalsan. I've been working in the industry for upwards of 15 years now, I think, maybe even more. I've lost count of the number of years. I've been with Netdata for close to 3 years now, and I'm part of the product team. But, Netdata is a startup. We're a small team, so everybody does a lot of different things. So I've been helping and leading with the strategic side of things as well, with the partnerships, and also kind of helping with the customer discussions and so on. But cool. I am a product guy and an engineer by trade.
Yeah, so Shyam and I met at a conference. I wouldn't necessarily call it a conference. I call it a technical gathering in Latvia this year. So that's where we met. So can you kind of delve into what inspired the creation of Netdata back in the day?
Sure. So, and I think this is going back many years, more than a decade probably. But our founder, Netdata's founder, Costa, was working in a fintech at that point in time, and he was one of the executives at this fintech, and they were doing this large-scale transition from on-prem to the cloud, as many companies do. And because they were a fintech, they had really strict requirements on how quickly transaction needed to happen. From a user's point of view, it needed to happen within like 2 seconds, 3 seconds. They had a timeout. And while they were doing the cloud transition, they started running into issues. So when the workloads moved to the cloud, they were getting timeouts, and they just couldn't figure out, why it was happening, because they had, they were moving a large complex system that had been running for many years. It had lots of different components, services, and the engineering team, led by Costa, tried every trick in the book. They tried all the different tools. They tried, writing custom scripts, circled through all of the, the commercial tools, and they couldn't really do it. They couldn't find out the root cause. And at some point, kind of Costa decided that he was just going to sit down for the weekends and write his own tool to do it. So that's how it started. He built a very bare version of a basic version of it, which helped them identify the thing. And the revelation for him was that the metrics needed to be every single second to catch like really small, tiny fluctuations and issues. So that's how it started. And I think he posted about it on Reddit, and then somebody pasted it on Hacker News, which he hadn't even heard about. And then he woke up the next day and he was getting bombarded from all corners. People were, starting to use it from GitHub. And that's how it started, right?
It's a cool thing, right? You just randomly start put something out in the ether, and then all of a sudden you're bombarded with notifications and have a company.
Yeah, I think what happened was somebody called him the next day morning and said, "You're on the the front page of Hacker News," and he's like, "What's that?"
That's funny. So for anyone new to Netdata, like how would you describe it in one sentence?
I would say that it's real-time distributed infrastructure intelligence is the way that I would phrase it. And we can get into why later.
So What are the core problems that Netdata is trying to solve, specifically within the cloud native ecosystem?
Cool. So is it okay if I can share my screen?
Sure. You should be
I
good.
hope my screen is visible. It's still showing the okay. So this kind of touches upon your question. This is why I wanted to kind of have something visual to talk about as well. So this is what we believe to be the current state of observability in the cloud native world and outside of it as well. We believe that the problems can be grouped into there being too little observability, or too complex observability, or too expensive observability, and it's usually a mix of these different things. So a lot of times what we see is that there's limited visibility, and it's related to some of these other things. So sometimes teams and projects and organizations say that observability is really expensive. Like some of these companies are charging like millions of dollars, or a big chunk or a big percentage of your actual infrastructure cost for observability. And especially startups and smaller companies are like, that's just way too much cost to bear. So we're just going to wing it, right? We're going to go in, and then we'll, if things break, we'll figure it out. So this is where, the problem of too little observability is. And it leads to all kinds of crazy outages and pain in the long run, as you can imagine. So this is a serious problem. The other problem is that you think you have observability, you have some metrics, you have some charts, and the charts are telling you some stories. So you're happy. But the reality is that you're not getting all the metrics. You're not getting enough of the data. So maybe you're getting one value for the metric every 60 seconds, right? So overall, you have a chart, you have the metric, but it's still too little because it's not telling you the full story.
Oh, you mean that if I don't just have dashboards and alerts, I'm not doing observability? I thought that was all I needed.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, even if you do have dashboards and alerts, you might still not be doing observability as it's supposed to be done. Because if you're getting like 5-minute metrics, which some tools do, you get a really good looking chart if you're looking at the last 24 hours, last 7 days of data. But there might be all kinds of craziness happening within that 5-minute time window that you're completely missing. Right?
Yeah, that makes sense. It's all about that granularity at the end of the day.
Yeah. And the other part of this is when it gets really complex. And this again hits the smaller teams and the smaller organizations more, because if you're like a giant corporation, you have giant SRE teams. There's a lot of people who are like gurus and experts in Prometheus and Grafana, and they know, here are the metrics I should be collecting. Here's how I should be visualizing them. Here's how I should be aggregating them. But if it's a new team, or if you're a startup, if you're a smaller company, uh, you have to learn all of those things the hard way. You can't really staff giant team to do this full time, maintain a Grafana Prometheus setup all the time, add metrics, update your charts. So it gets really complex. In some cases, you even have to learn like a new query language to query and aggregate and things like that. So we believe that for observability to be useful for everyone, it has to be as simple as possible. It has to be out of the box. You have the dashboards, which has the intelligence of how it should be aggregated, how it should be visualized, should be built into the tool. And of course, you can customize it if you want to, or if you need.
Yeah, that makes sense. The more information that you give the user up front, the less they have to think about, right? And there's a value prop there. So before we get into a demo, I want to kind of do a little bit of a technical deep dive. So can we break down the kind of architecture and what are the main components?
So let me just jump into maybe this view first. So this is showing the kind of the data pipeline for Netdata. And Netdata's architecture is quite different from most monitoring and observability tools, in the fact that it is distributed or decentralized. And what this means is that you have your local Netdata, which is the Netdata open source agent that you would be installing on your system. And when you think about monitoring agents, usually they just do one thing. They're just collecting metrics, they're sending it somewhere for it to be stored to some sort of server somewhere, which is kind of collecting all the metrics. But the Netdata agent is a bit different. It's more than traditional agent, because of course it's discovering the metrics and it's collecting the metrics, but it's also storing the metrics locally in its in Netdata's own time series database that we've created. It's called DB Engine. It is open source, and it's part of that agent. So it's designed to be optimal for storing per second real-time data. So we're collecting. So the how the architecture looks like is the agent comes with a bunch of native collectors. The collectors are mostly written in Go. Some of them are written in Python, and they collect all of the basic system metrics, all of the standard application metrics, your Kubernetes metrics. All of that stuff is collected by these native set of collectors. But Netdata also interoperates with all your Prometheus exporters, right? So Prometheus has like a huge community, and there's like thousands upon thousands of Prometheus exporters out there. They all use the open metrics standard, and you don't need a Prometheus server. Netdata would play that role, and you just point to the IP and the port where the Prometheus exporter is exposing the metrics, and it would scrape them and automatically visualize them, right?
So is it one local net data per node? So is that like an agent in Kubernetes speak? Is that like a single
Yeah.
pod that has these multiple set of agents as containers within that pod?
Yeah, so you can think of that each of your nodes or each of your servers or each of your VMs could have a Netdata agent running in it. And that Netdata agent would collect the metrics and store them locally, and also run anomaly detection on it, check for alert triggers. All of that would happen locally. And what this means is that you can also visualize things locally. So you don't need to necessarily rely on one central dashboard where everything is there. Let's say you're in a situation where there's network issues and one part of your network is kind of cut off from the other part. You can still log in locally into the Netdata, the local host and Netdata port, and see a dashboard for that part of your network. Because it's decentralized and each of these nodes can exist on its own. When it comes to installing Netdata on, for example, a Kubernetes cluster, Netdata just needs to run on the worker nodes. It doesn't need to run on like every single node or every single part of your cluster. But from the worker nodes, it should be able to read what pods you have, what's happening inside the pods, and so on.
That makes sense. And then where is the main kind of bulk of the work being done? Obviously, you've got the agent collectors on the kind of left hand side there, and then
Yeah, so
is the kind of discovery, collect, detect, and kind of done at the agent level, and then it ships to something central where your time series database is?
So the neat thing is the data storage is actually not just the data storage, but also the compute required for handling the querying from the storage layer, the compute required for the anomaly detection and the unsupervised machine learning and the alerts. All of that is kind of distributed, right? So if I go back to this slide for a second, you can see here that in this example, we have all of these nodes here, A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. All of these, you can think of them as individual nodes or servers. They could be VMs, they could be bare metal servers, whatnot. Each of them has a Netdata agent running on them, and each of them individually is storing its own data. It's configurable. If you don't want that server to store its data, you can offload it to a Netdata parent. So this is where the parent agents come in. You have, in this case, 3 parent agents. And you can think of a parent agent as like a mini centralization point. So all of these A1, A2, A3, A4, A5 nodes are saying that, we're storing our data, but we can also offload it to, parent A. And parent A will have data from all of these child nodes. So you can say that all the child nodes, I don't really want to take up storage space, so I'm just going to stream the data there, right? That's also an option. So you can say, and you can have high availability as well. You can send it to multiple parents if you want to, and say that in case this parent goes down, I still have all the data on another parent. And the parents can also be in charge of running the machine learning, doing the alert checking for all the children. But the really important bit is the fact that that's where the data storage stops. It does not go to the cloud. So you have Netdata Cloud on the top. There is no data storage that happens at Netdata Cloud. The only thing that happens there is when the user opens the dashboard on their browser and they're looking at a bunch of charts, Netdata Cloud orchestrates a distributed query across all of the Netdata agents or the parents, and then just pulls in the data in real time and visualizes it on your dashboard. And once you close the tab or you go away to some other tab, the query stops. So the data that's actually going out of your network, the egress data, is minuscule, right? So when you're on the dashboard, it's on the order of like a few hundred kilobytes a second.
Neat. That's cool. I didn't realize that it actually did that.
And the only other time that your data actually flows through Netdata Cloud is if an alert condition gets hit, and then we need to notify you, right? So if you have set up notifications, by default, Netdata would send you an email, but you can set it up to get the notification on Slack or Teams or PagerDuty or whatever, right? So we just transmit that alert trigger has been hit. It goes through Netdata Cloud through the notification integration to wherever you set it up.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, which feature would you say users are most excited about when they first try it?
So I'd say the wow factor for new users trying out Netdata is just the fact that they install it, and then 1 minute later they have like 1,000 chart dashboard, which is just ready, right? So that's the immediate wow factor. So sometimes when you talk about it with users, everybody says things like this, right? Everybody says that everything is out of the box, automated, and dashboards, insights, and people kind of had it with the constant marketing speak. But this is something that we've seen in practice, that when people actually see it on their own data, that they copy this command, run it on the terminal. It takes about a minute to run. It's installed it, and you suddenly see all the charts, right? So that's the magic moment, I feel, because people are just not used to the fact that you get like a fully fleshed out dashboard with 1,000 charts in a minute.
Yeah, that's neat. Everyone loves a dashboard, right? So I think I've asked these questions already, so I'm going to kind of gloss over them. I had a bunch of questions about scalability and performance, but I think the child parent analogy kind of explains how that works. So I understand you've prepared a demo for us today. Like, what will we be seeing?
Sure. So I can jump into that. Let me share a different screen. I've not used Zoom in a while, so it's
No problem.
making me run around in circles. But okay, I'm sharing again. I hope my screen is visible.
It is.
Yeah. So this is the Netdata UI in dark mode, as most of our users like it, but light mode is there as well. I can give a quick rundown of what's going on here. So this is one of our internal spaces. You can see there's 31 nodes right now on this. And this is the home tab. It's just giving you a high-level view. This contains some of our Kubernetes clusters. So you can see that from these 30 nodes, we're collecting 46.2 million metrics right now, being collected every single seconds. The chart where users really spend most of their time and actually do their monitoring and troubleshooting is the metrics tab here. So this is what we call the metrics explorer. And everything that you see here is out of the box. So you install Netdata. If you install it on one system, you get all of these charts from that one system. In this case, it's pulling in data from 31 systems, of which 15 are live right now. So what Netdata does is it discovers all of the metrics. You can see in this case, there's 5,400 charts. and it organizes them into these sections here. So all the system metrics get organized under compute or memory, and under each of these sections, you can see there's further subsections. So, RAM or swap and so on. So those are the system level stuff. If you have, if you want to find out what's happening with different processes, you can go to the apps section and you can see which processes are running, how much CPU memory they're taking. And each of these charts that you see here, each of these time series charts, it's a little bit like a dashboard of its own. So, if I was to compare it with a tool like, a combination of Prometheus and Grafana, for example, sometimes you have to kind of master the art of the query language on how to query the data from PromQL, get it into Grafana, and then decide how to group it by something and how to aggregate it by something. With Netdata, you can do all of those things, but you can do it directly from the UI. So you can just click here, decide what you want to group by, dimension, instance, node, or a custom label that you've created. You can choose how you want to aggregate it, filter by a node or an instance or a label. And like I said, you can have custom labels. So you can have your own logical grouping.
So does this out the box, Sham, handle kind of multi-cluster? So if I want to play off, say, non-production against production, does it kind of handle that out of the box?
Yeah, so out of the box, you get the aggregate charts, right? So by default, it's going to show you a chart with everything in this space that you have Netdata connected to. And if you just had created a label which said all of these instances are your production, all of these are staging, all of these are test, then you can choose to group by those different things, right?
Okay, so it's kind of on the user to come up with their own taxonomy.
Yeah, we do it for certain things out of the box, like this app group thing that you see here. So this is automatically grouping processes based on their application group. But if you wanted to do something like production versus testing, then you would need to add a custom label yourself.
And if I add a custom, so if I deploy Netdata into production, well, into staging and then production, and I don't set the label, and then I assume that I add the label and then kind of Helm upgrade or deploy it again, however I need to deploy it, do all pre-existing metrics get the new label or only net new?
No, all of them should get it.
Okay.
And there's a whole bunch of Kubernetes related stuff that we collect. To make it easier, we've created a Kubernetes specific tab as well. If you just want to monitor your Kubernetes cluster and what's happening there. So it's kind of grouped into containers, cluster state, Kubernetes state. And we also have a kind of the heat map sort of view with all the different pods, because in some cases that's what's more useful for users.
So what would you say are the most common mistakes people make when they're using this user interface, if they were new?
So yeah, I mean, I think one of the mistakes, I don't know if it's a mistake or not, that people might have the first time that they see a tool like Netdata, is that there's a lot of data, right? So they might see the fact that there's 5,408 charts here, like, and get overwhelmed. And you can see that the UI is quite busy. There's a lot of stuff happening here. But it's, at least from experience and from talking to a few users, we believe that, of course we can still improve, but the learning curve is, it's not steep. It's quite flat. It doesn't take, weeks to learn the ropes of Netdata. It's usually just a few minutes or hours. We can kind of walk through, here's where you need to look at things. And just because you have, 1,000 charts doesn't mean that, you have to go over each of them. You have to like endlessly doom scroll your way through all of them. There are features which sometimes users take time to arrive to, like anomaly detection, like metrics correlation, which make it a lot easier for you to kind of get to a smaller set of metrics that you need to look at for your use case. So I think that would be one thing where some users might get stuck.
And can I save like bookmarks? So can I have like my favorite set of excuse me, of views
Yeah. So there's different ways to do this. So like I said, of course, there's custom dashboards, but our philosophy is something like, yes, you can have your custom dashboards, but you shouldn't need to have them, right? So uh, every metric that we collect is already in a chart in the metrics tab. But let's say that there's certain metrics that you care about more than others. You can just click on this heart icon here, and they get favorited. So let's say that engine X is what you really care about. I can click on the heart here, and engine X is now bookmarked so that it's always on the top when you come to this tab. But this is just a way to customize this view, the metrics view. If you want to create your own custom dashboard, you can just drag and drop stuff. So you just pull the chart, pull it into the dashboards tab, and you can just drop it into an existing dashboard, or create a new dashboard. That's it. And you go to the dashboards, go to the dashboard that we just made. You can rename it to something. You can resize, you can change the chart type to something else that you like. And basically it's what you're used to with the Grafana sort of experience, right?
Yeah, that's neat. It's taken orders of magnitude less time than it would have taken me to do something similar in Grafana.
And you can save it, share it, the usual things with the custom dashboard. And the other thing that I just wanted to show it. So I'm just jumping to another space. This is just this local space I set up with a couple of my own devices. Looks like my laptop's gone offline right now, but I have my PC, and we have the anomaly detection that I was talking about earlier is not an add-on feature with Netdata. It's something that we do for every single metric out of the box. So if you want to see which metrics are anomalous, if I can click on this, it's you can see that each section has an anomaly rate associated to it. There's not a lot of anomalous things happening on my laptop right now, but on my PC right now. But if I look at disk, for example, there are some minor anomalies going on, and then you can kind of look through it to understand.
How are you seeing the anomalies there, Shyam?
So I clicked on this anomaly percentage button here.
Where am I looking?
On the screen on the right here. Can you see this?
Yeah, I can see it.
And when I click on it, each of these sections here in this table of contents gets a number, which might be a bit hard to see on the screen right now, associated to it. And that number is the percentage of anomalous behavior that you have for that particular set of metrics.
I think if you shrink your screen size, it's cutting off a little bit, so people will be able to see it.
Okay. But I think there's an easier way to do this. So the way that we visualize anomalies is every chart that you see here, every time series chart, on top of it has an anomaly ribbon. So you can see here, there's like purple highlighting. And when I mouse over on the purple, it says that these 3 dimensions. So this is application groups memory RSS usage. So memory usage for applications on my Windows PC. And it's saying that these are the 3 dimensions that are anomalous right now. So devices flow, remote access connection manager, secure socket tunneling protocol service, right? And these 3 services were behaving anomalously at that point in time at 8:23 today, right? Which is like 4 minutes ago. So something was going on in my system at that point.
Because you're using a Windows machine.
Yeah. So I just came off a Windows specific webinar like 10 minutes ago, just why I'm doing Windows stuff. But if you were troubleshooting this and saying, why is there an anomaly right here? What else was happening during this time? You can choose this highlighter tool that we have for each chart, and then just highlight this small time window, right? And then you can run what we call metrics correlation on this. What this means is that I've highlighted this 28-second window in time, and I'm saying, find me correlations for any metrics for this, which match this pattern, right? And what does Netdata do? It says that it's analyzed 651 metrics and found 2 correlated metrics. So this is what I was talking about. There might be thousands and thousands of metrics, but once you run the correlation, it's saying that this pattern for this point in time there were only two charts which exhibited the same pattern, and that was your app memory private usage and app memory usage, right? I just selected a random period in time where there was an anomaly, but you can think of an example where this was to do with an outage or an alert. Then this becomes a lot more meaningful, right? In this case, you can see that it was what happened here was Google Chrome. I think
Of
Google
course.
Chrome dropped a bit. I
Of
might
course
have
it did.
closed a few tabs.
Cool.
And
So,
then so
oh,
there are these tools like Anomaly Advisor, metrics correlation, which makes the experience a lot more useful.
so you've shown metrics, which is great. Is there any chance we can have a look at alerts and you can kind of explain how they get put together and constructed?
Sure. So let me jump to another space. This is our demo space. You can see there's a lot of different nodes. We've grouped them into different applications like Apache, Docker, Nginx, and so on. And there's huge number of alerts here because we've made them pretty. The state of these nodes are pretty bad, so that all the alerts get triggered. And there's an alerts tab here which shows you all the active alerts, right? So you have your warning alerts, your critical alerts. Some of the alerts might be obvious, and some of them might not be that obvious. So as an example, let's take QoS packet drops. So maybe you already know what QoS packet drops implies, but maybe you don't. In case you don't, we've provided a troubleshooting assistant here called Netdata Assistant. You click on it, it will tell you what this alert means. What does packet drops mean in this context? How do you troubleshoot it? It even gives you some useful resources about this content so that you can save time on Googling for stuff or asking ChatGPT for stuff. We've done some of that prep work to make it easier. And if you found out about the alert and then you decide that okay, I don't really care about this alert, you can create a silencing rule by clicking on this so that you don't get notified about it. Or if you want to edit the alert, or if you want to change the threshold, just click on that pencil icon. You come here, you can look at the triggers and you can change the triggers. So you can say the condition for warning should be something else, condition for critical should be something else.
So
Or
how
check this.
do I have to learn a new, like, not the querying is probably the, well, I guess it is querying, a new querying slash alerting language to kind of put these together. How do I create like a brand new alert?
Yeah, so to create a brand new alert, all you have to do is, let's go back to the metrics tab here, and let's look at some other metric. Let's say that I am in containers, C groups, and CPU usage within limits. So let's say I want to create an alert for this particular metric. I just click on this bell icon here, which is manage alerts. And it says that there's already an alert for this CPU C group 10-minute CPU usage. But let's say I want to create something else. I want to create 30-minute CPU usage. I would click on add alert. So this opens up this window and I can name this whatever I want to name it. There is a language for the alert. As you can see, there's a YAML format for it, but you don't have to learn the format itself. You can use the UI and you can decide what you want to put here. You can define the triggers, and the language, the template would automatically be created, right? This is one area where we're still trying to make this a bit more easier, because as you can see, there's quite a lot of options here. So first time users might find it a bit challenging to create alerts on their own. It gets easier if you look at an existing alert and then understand the structure. You can start editing alerts much faster. But this is one area where we still think that there's work to be done to make this even more intuitive. But once you figure out what each of these things need to be, you can test it out or submit it directly from the UI, and you can submit it to one instance or to all your nodes. You can, when you click on multi-node, it'll ask you to select.
Oh,
which
so
node.
this alert gets synced to the nodes that you care about.
Yes.
It's not an overall alert that wraps up and is easily.
Yeah, because each Netdata agent comes with a health engine that runs within the agent. You can do it per agent. or you can do it for all agents if you want.
I see. That makes sense. That's neat. Kind of reduces the noise if I don't care about a bunch of nodes or regions.
Yep. And I think so we covered alerts. The other thing that it's comparatively new to Netdata is logs. So Netdata used to be known for metrics primarily, but we've entered the logs market, if you will, and we have the log explorer now, and we can pull in logs from each of your systems. You can search for logs. There, it's really fast. As you can see, you might have many gigabytes, terabytes of log data, but the querying is really fast. Of course, we've just started on our journey in logs. There's a lot more to do. So we're working currently on features like creating alerts from log data, creating anomaly detection on logs, metrics out of logs data. All of this is, it's stuff that we're currently working on.
So are these logs stored in the local agent? So the local agent has the logs and the metrics.
So the way that we do it is on Linux-based systems, we rely on systemd journal for log storage. So usually all Linux systems have systemd journal already there. People may or may not be using them. And you can also set up log centralization points, just like your metric centralization points. So the parent agent could centralize logs for all the child agents. But again, the logs are not streamed to a cloud anywhere. They're all stored locally. It's just that we use journal as the base. We have some plans to support other log storages in the future, things like maybe Loki and Elastic for people who are already using them, and to pull that in as well. But on Linux, we use systemd journal. On Windows, it's Windows event logs.
Cool. Have you got anything else you want to show in the demo before I ask a bunch of questions?
I think I covered most of the things. So besides metrics and logs, there's also other forms of real-time data that you can get to using Netdata. We have this tab here called top, and it's called top because top is a command that everybody usually runs just to see a snapshot of what's going on, right? What processes are occupying or using up what amount of CPU, memory, and so on. But you can do that without SSHing into your terminal and running this on each node by just directly doing it from Netdata here. And it's not just the top command, but there's a bunch of different stuff like network socket tracing, network interfaces, network connections, and you can visualize it in different ways as well. So here it's visualizing based on the number of sockets that you have, which are private, public, client, server, and you really know which processors have the most open sockets and so on.
Shout out to your UI designer.
I'll pass it on. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's a quick rundown. Of course, there's a lot more to say, but I'm sure people can figure some of this stuff out on their own when they play with it. One thing I do want to mention is that we have a public demo which you can access if you just go to app.netdata.cloud spaces Netdata demo. So this URL here, it's open to everybody, and you can see the exact same thing that I'm showing right now. It's a public demo that you can access.
Awesome. I'll make sure I put that in the show notes. I'll get the link off of you. Cool. So I want to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk and ask a number of questions based on the demo, but also for people wanting to contribute, right? So one of the things I like to do is to get an understanding and a grasp of how new contributors to projects can kind of get involved. So what's the best way for new contributors to start not just using Netdata, but kind of contributing to the code base?
So I think there's two areas where I would recommend. Of course, the Netdata agent itself is written in C. It's open source, so you can contribute there. But it's usually harder for new users to do that, just because the agent has to be highly performant. So it's very strict in terms of what PRs get accepted and approved. It's usually easier if you start contributing in terms of collectors. So Netdata comes with a bunch of collectors that are usually written in Go. And it's, if you know Go, or even if you're new to Go, it's really easy language to learn. And you can create a collector for anything that you're interested in, that you want to monitor yourself. Or, for example, there is a Prometheus exporter for it, which can be used with Netdata, but creating a native Go collector in Netdata would be a nice way to learn the ropes and figure out how it works. And it's something that you can do as a small project. It shouldn't take long time. You can do it in a few days. So that's one way that I'd recommend. The other thing would be, um, so Netdata is a very opinionated tool, as you might have seen. It has opinions on how something should be visualized, what an alert threshold should be, and it's shipping with these things. So we've kind of aggregated these opinions from the community, from subject matter experts, and so on. So if you are a subject matter expert of something, right? Let's say you're an expert on Postgres, and you believe that this is something that Postgres users should be alerting on, you can just create an alert on our repository, and that alert will now be available for all Netdata users, right?
That's cool. What type of contributions are you kind of most looking for right now from public contributions? Would it be more collectors or kind of enhancements and features on existing collectors?
Yeah, I think it would be a mix of those two. So new collectors are always welcome, but for the most popular and obvious collectors, if there are missing metrics, if people think that here's this metric that's not being collected right now, or it would be good if this is part of the thing, feel free to put in a PR. The collector team moves really fast, so I'm sure we can make progress fast.
So, what exciting features are on the roadmap for Netdata without spoiling the whole entire roadmap, obviously?
So I think we're going to take logs a lot more seriously. So this is something that's going to happen soon because people are already working on it. So you should be able to create custom log dashboards, create metrics, and anomaly detection on logs, the whole hog, right? So it's going to be Netdata is going to be make logs a first class citizen, I'd say. The other uh, neat things that are coming soon are probably reporting. So right now, Netdata is kind of focused on showing you real-time data. Of course, you can choose the time frame and say, show me the last day, the last 7 days. But even though it has access to data from like all of months, maybe years, there is no like single report which is saying, here's the story of your infrastructure for the last 6 months, right? So this is something that we're working on as well. We have some early versions of it that we're playing with internally. And we're also leveraging large language models to do some of it so that it's not just showing you a bunch of charts, but also trying to kind of make sense of it, right? So
there it is. I knew AI was going to creep in there at some point. So, what emerging cloud native trends do you think will impact the kind of development and feature set of Netdata?
So one thing which is already impacting it is, of course, open telemetry, which is always the talk of the town. So we have, we're working towards full compatibility with open telemetry. Like I mentioned earlier, we're currently compatible with open metrics, which itself is a huge thing for us because all of those Prometheus exporters, which people keep writing, can work directly with Netdata. But we have a team that's working on the open telemetry bit of things as well. We're also trying to see if we can help influence some of the direction of how metadata is treated overall, because this really helps with the opinionated monitoring that we're trying to push. So by metadata, I mean anything that describes the metric. Like it's not just about getting the metric, but defining how it should be aggregated, how should it be grouped, all of that information. There should be a standard way that the industry coalesces around.
Yeah, the sooner that standardization happens, the better, I think, for me and many others.
Yeah, even things as simple as units, right? Everybody uses a different unit, and then when you try to aggregate things, it just goes crazy.
Freedom units. So you're probably aware that we have a tradition on this show where the previous guest asks a question for the next guest, not necessarily knowing who they are or what project they're associated with. So John and Jared from Cube First asked, what's your best Thanksgiving side dish? Would it be mashed potato or macaroni and cheese?
Why choose when you can have both?
There you go. I would go mac and cheese. I know they were big fans of mashed potato, but I think mashed potato is pretty boring. I'm going to get trolled now probably for that statement.
Yeah, the mashed potato fans are coming after you, man.
Yeah, I think so. So where can people find the project and kind of get involved as we wrap up?
Yeah, so the two easiest places are one, the website, which is just netdata.cloud, or our GitHub page, which is github.com/netdata/netdata.
Easy. And do you have any final thoughts or advice for aspiring contributors or people in the observability space?
So I would say just try it out because it's very low cost in terms of your time and effort that you're going to spend. And of course, the open source agent, you're not spending any actual cost on it either. Even if you're using Netdata Cloud, you get a full free trial of all the features, and after the trial finishes, you still have the free community plan. So there's a very low barrier to entry, and just set it up on a few instances and play around with it. And then if you like what you see, you can get in touch with us. You can contribute. You can jump on the Discord server where a lot of cool dudes hang out, and it's gonna be fun.
I didn't realize you had a Discord server, so you're going to have to send me that link now.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you the link. Yeah.
So yeah, I just want to wrap up and say thanks for taking the time to show us through Netdata today. I know it's late for you there, and personally, I hope that we get to see each other again next year. I've never been to Helsinki, so if there's any excuse for me to come there, then let me know.
Sure.
Or maybe I'll see you.
I might be headed that way as well next year.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see you at KubeCon.
Yeah.
Will you and the team be here?
I think there are a few conferences in London coming up.
Awesome. Yeah, maybe I'll see you here rather than you see me over there.
Cool. It was
So
great
cool.
being here.
Yeah, I just want to say until next time, I'm Steve Wade. This has been the Cloud Native Club Project Spotlight with Netdata. Keep building, keep learning, and keep sharing your knowledge with others. And I'll see you next week. Thanks all.
Bye-bye.